In the beginning, the word samurai simply meant one who serves. They were not legendary warriors. They were armed guards serving the nobility in the court of the Emperor of Japan. They followed orders and protected property. They had no real political power. Within less than 3 centuries, these guards transformed into the actual ruling class of all Japan. They would rule for nearly 700 continuous years. By the end of this story, we will reach one moment, one final desperate battle that forever changed the way the world understands the word samurai. But here's the twist. Much of what we know today about the honor of the samurai did not actually exist during the time of real battles. In the Heian period, around the year 1000, the first samurai were simply armed servants. They protected wealthy landowners and nobles. Here's a surprising fact. The common image of the samurai as master swordsmen is not accurate for this early period. The first samurai were not sword fighters, they were mounted archers. They used the sword only as a second option when the bow failed. Over time, the central power of the emperor weakened. The local military class began to gain real power on the ground. The emperor remained a symbolic figure, but he was no longer a true ruler. The turning point came in the year 1192. A military leader named Minamoto no Yoritomo established what became known as the Kamakura Shogunate. This was a complete military government. The emperor kept his symbolic position, but real power, both military and political, transferred entirely to the supreme military commander, the shogun. Behind him stood the entire samurai class. From this moment, the samurai truly ruled Japan, not the emperors. This system continued for centuries. Different families held power. There were periods of violent internal conflict known as the Sengoku period, or the Age of Warring States. Finally, Japan was unified under Tokugawa Ieyasu in 1603. He established a shogunate that ruled from the city of Edo for more than 250 continuous years. What is remarkable is this: the samurai class never exceeded 5 to 7% of Japan's total population. Farmers made up about 85% of the people. Despite this, this tiny minority held all political, administrative, and judicial power in the entire country. Now we come to a detail that many people do not know. During the long rule of the Tokugawa family, Japan experienced nearly complete internal peace for more than 2 centuries. No major wars, no battles, no conquests. So what did tens of thousands of professional warriors do during 2 centuries without war? They effectively became bureaucrats and officials. They managed regional affairs, taxes, and justice. They depended on fixed salaries from agricultural production, not on spoils of war or military wages. The 2 swords each samurai carried, the long and the short, became symbols of social status rather than actual daily weapons. And here, in these quiet offices, not on battlefields, most of what we know today as Bushido was formulated. The supposed code of samurai honor, absolute loyalty, honor above life, strict discipline. This code was largely created by samurai who had not seen real war for 2 full generations. It was an idealistic moral philosophy for their class, rather than actual combat rules applied on the battlefield. This situation continued until the mid-19th century. In 1853, American warships commanded by Commodore Perry arrived and forced Japan to open to the modern world by force. This clash with superior Western military technology triggered enormous internal upheaval. It ended with the fall of the Tokugawa shogunate and the formal return of power to the emperor in 1868. This became known as the Meiji Restoration. Among the leaders of this great revolution, one name stands out: Saigo Takamori, a samurai from the Satsuma domain. He actively participated in overthrowing the old shogunate and supported the modernization of the Japanese army. But after the success of the revolution he helped to create, Saigo discovered something unexpected. The new government, which he had helped establish, decided to abolish the samurai class entirely. In 1876, the government issued the Haitore Decree, which prohibited the public carrying of swords and abolished the traditional stipends of the samurai. Angry and disillusioned, Saigo resigned from his position. He returned to his domain. He began training local schools and dojos that preserved the old samurai spirit, without initially intending to confront the emperor directly. But things escalated. In 1877, the Satsuma Rebellion broke out, led by Saigo himself, against the new central government. 30,000 warriors, armed with traditional swords and old fighting methods, faced a modern army of ordinary conscripts equipped with rifles and modern artillery. By any measure, this was not an equal battle. Some historians later described it as more of a massacre than a real battle. On September 24th, 1877, on the hills of Shiroyama, near his birthplace, the last stronghold of Saigo fell. According to the traditional account, he ended his life through the samurai ritual of seppuku, surrounded by the exhausted remnants of his army. With his fall, the last armed rebellion of the samurai class in history effectively ended. And here comes the great irony that sums up the entire story. The imperial government itself, which fought Saigo and crushed his rebellion completely, declared him a national hero only a few years later. They officially pardoned him after his death. Why? Because the modern government, despite officially abolishing the samurai class, needed the same symbolic values that Saigo represented: absolute loyalty, willingness to sacrifice, strict discipline. They needed these values to instill in a new national army where most of its soldiers did not know the meaning of the word samurai at all. In this very context, in the year 1900, a Japanese writer named Inazo Nitobe published a book in English originally for a Western audience. Its title was Bushido, the Soul of Japan. In it, he crafted a complete, almost romantic image of the ideal samurai code of honor. Here's the greatest irony. Nitobe himself was born after the samurai class was officially abolished. He never lived a single day as a real samurai during a time of actual war. His book spread widely around the world. Major Western leaders read it later. It became the primary source that shaped the image of the ideal samurai in global popular culture, from films to video games, even to this day. So what remains of the truth amid all this? The real rise of the samurai, from simple guards to actual rulers of an entire nation for 700 years, is completely documented. It needs no embellishment, but the complete romantic image we hold today of the absolute honor of the samurai was largely shaped long after their real age of warfare had ended. It was shaped by samurai bureaucrats in a time of peace, then by a modern government that needed a legend, then by a writer who never carried a sword in a real battle. This does not diminish the greatness of Saigo Takamori or the courage of the thousands who died at Shiroyama, but it reminds us of a simple idea. Sometimes the most powerful historical legends are crafted long after the real events have ended, because the world often needs the legend more than it needs the complete truth. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel. Every week we dive into a new trace from history.